Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans and homunculi, welcome to another episode of Clarifying Catholicism. You're watching part 6 on a series of the history of the Ecumenical Councils according to the Roman Catholic Church. Today, we are covering the Council of Chalcedon. Much of this information was gathered from Joseph Kelly's The Ecumenical Councils of the Catholic Church, A History, so if you want an in-depth dive into these topics, make sure to pick up a copy of his book. To see the rest of our episodes, check the playlist in the description below. Without further ado, on to the show. Last episode, we talked about the calamity known as the Council of Ephesus, in which Alexandrian bishops, led by Cyril, launched a political campaign to humiliate the Constantinopolitan bishops, led by Nestorius. At the end of the council, Cyril had successfully deposed his adversary, gained the support of Rome, and escaped imprisonment from the emperor. Now, I should make it clear that Cyril wasn't merely a bad guy with political aspirations. He was clearly a master theologian, and Nestorius was clearly in the wrong. Had he not been able to outmaneuver Nestorius theologically, he could not have done so politically either. Still, the aftermath of Ephesus left a bitter taste in the mouths of pro-Nestorian Constantinopolitans and Antiochians. And Cyril felt isolated by his political posturing, so he exchanged some documents affirming unity to hostile dioceses, such as Antioch and some in Syria. But the question that Nestorius and his followers brought up still lingered. If Jesus is fully human and fully divine to the point where Mary can be called the Mother of God, well, what does that mean about his human nature? Eutyches, a superior of a monastery in Constantinople, adapted Cyril of Alexandria's emphasis on two aspects of Christ, human and divine, but with far less nuance. Misreading Cyril, he claimed that Jesus had one nature of God that eventually became human, or something weird to that effect. Critics then accused him of favoring Christ's divinity over his humanity, which turned into some people strawmanning him by saying that he didn't believe Jesus was human at all. The Patriarch of Constantinople took this as an opportunity to hit back at the Alexandrians by condemning Eutyches and his beliefs. Alexandria wasn't too happy about this and started conspiring against Constantinople. Eutyches then complained that the Constantinopolitans were mistreating him. He gained the support of the emperor. Rome saw this whole situation and sided with Eutyches and Alexandria, claiming that Eutyches probably just didn't know what he was talking about and didn't deserve to be mistreated or condemned. The emperor, who was probably still wary of the chaotic mess known as the Council of Ephesus, see last episode, convened another council at Ephesus. He appointed Dioscorus, an Alexandrian bishop, as the president of the council. What Constantinople did not realize, though, is that the Alexandrians would use this council as an opportunity to, again, humiliate their city and their diocese. Rome decided to just send a couple of representatives. At this point, it was customary for the Romans to let the Easterners hash things out and then stamp their approval on whichever side they thought won. But at this point, some of you might be wondering what the big deal is about any of this stuff. By now, several people have been hurt, if not killed, because of thinking Jesus was too human or too divine. Now, it's no secret that many of these doctrinal disputes were exacerbated by politics, but they do carry deep theological ramifications. For example, if Jesus was only God but not human, how could he have died on behalf of the human race? If Jesus was not human, how should we understand the human feelings and pains he endured? It's important to realize here that even though politics blew the consequences of these disputes way out of proportion, the theological questions were still very valid. And it is unfortunate that the debates did not result in the shaking of hands, but often with the rolling of heads. Before the council even started, the Alexandrian bishop, Dioscorus, excluded every bishop who had condemned Eutyches, the pro-Alexandrian theologian, from attending the council, so it was very one-sided. This was a huge blow to Constantinople, since many of their best theologians were against Eutyches and were prevented from attending. The crowd, therefore, was very much stacked in Eutyches' favor and against Constantinople. Dioscorus, the Alexandrian, had all the bishops affirm their commitment to Nicaea before accusing the Constantinopolitan bishop, Flavian, of violating it. This accusation sparked outrage, and Dioscorus called in security to control the crowds. The problem was that security was a mix between police and rogues, and they severely beat Flavian, who died 3 days later because of his wounds. For the third time in less than 50 years, Alexandria had successfully deposed a bishop of Constantinople. Pope Leo of Rome was infuriated by this, but the Eastern Emperor refused to do anything about it. That is, until he was killed in a hunting accident. His sister came into power and immediately had Eutyches' godson, who worked for the court, executed. The new ruler enjoyed a good relationship with Rome and decided it was time for another council to settle these issues once and for all. The location of the council was Chalcedon, and it opened in 451. This time, Rome did attend in a significant manner. The council president was a Sicilian bishop. The council was overwhelmingly fed up with the political antics of Alexandria. As Dioscorus, the Alexandrian bishop, kept trying to snag power away from Rome and take control of the council himself, he was eventually tried during the council and condemned. Attendees then reaffirmed both Nicaea and Constantinople, as well as the doctrine of Theotokos, Mary being the Mother of God, and finally settled the matter that Christ indeed had two natures, both human and divine, and neither detracted from the other. The majority of the council and the emperor approved, and the council was closed. But while the council fathers were relieved to have finally buried the hatchet, not everyone back home was happy, especially in Egypt. Those who disagreed with Chalcedon became known as Monophysites. I'll mention again that a recurring theme throughout this series continues to be one council's solution is another council's problem, and I think the following anecdote will explain how. One fine Easter day, in an act of revenge for allying himself with Chalcedon, one Alexandrian bishop, Proterius, was beaten, stabbed to death, beaten some more, torn limb from limb, and burnt. Clearly, not everyone was happy with Chalcedon, and Monophysitism soon rapidly spread across the empire.